Welcome to Root Tuners Arcade. I'm your host RT, and today we have a kind of a request video. Now this is a comment that came in the comment section for the last video I made, and shout outs to him, Daniel Lopez 345. We had a small conversation, and basically he was asking if I had an Evercade console. I don't have one of those things. I like arcade machines, and I like a lot of other stuff as well, but I don't have an Evercade. But anyway, get to the point of the story. He was asking me, basically, long story short, how to translate, if I could run a PCB Jamma board through the OSC, my upscaler, and then use that to get Scanlines on the Nova Blast arcade machine. And the reason that's interesting is because right now, unless Unico upgrades their monitor or their board, there's really not a way to get Scanlines on your Jamma boards. Okay, now if you have something like a Pandora's box, you can do that, but they look like crap, to be honest with you. But if you have something like a RetroTink or even an OSSC, which I'm going to be using today, you can get decent Scanlines on your monitor. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, shout out to Daniel Lopez 345. Realistically, I am doing a lot of tests with this machine, but I might not even thought of this possibility. So shout outs to him for this video, and we're going to get into it. Now, one thing we have to know is you are going to need quite a bit of items for this tutorial, but I'm going to show you guys step by step how to set everything up, and then we're going to test it at the end. So you're going to need a super gun, and if you don't know what a super gun is, I'll explain it to you real fast. Basically, a super gun is something that hooks to your Jamma boards, and all you need to know really is that it's designed to play PCB Jamma boards. Okay, something that takes a Jamma input and connect it to a modern setup. So what I mean by that is basically if you have a Jamma board of whatever, I got a Pit Fighter in my case. If I want to play Pit Fighter on my TV, basically a super gun will allow me to do that. Or if you have a CRT and you want to play on a CRT so you don't get no lag and you want instant kind of like a monitor, it's able to do that, and it's also able to set up to a CRT PC monitor. So that's pretty much what it is. So I'm gonna show you all the stuff we need today, guys. I know it was a long intro, but it's a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get into it. All right, guys, so here we are. I'm gonna show you everything we're gonna need for today's tutorial. We're gonna need a Jamma board right here. Okay, this is a Pit Fighter Jamma. You're gonna need your super gun, okay, with the Jamma adapter. I got mine. Mine's a consoleized super gun. I'll show you that real quick. You're gonna need your encoder. I am using the OSSC for this tutorial, and you're gonna need a pair of component cables. All right, so I'll show you everything, and you're gonna need this hookup here for the audio. So I'm gonna show you how to set everything up step by step, and explain the process as we do it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is hook up our Jamma board, and you want to be extremely careful with this. Okay, so we got a connection here, and if we look right here, guys, we have the little nub on the Jamma board right here. That's our power side. We have the Jamma connector for the power side here. So we're just gonna put these two together like this. Okay, so now it's on. All right, so we can put this Jamma off to the side. Now, what it's connected to is a USB super gun, and this was a older model. I got this thing a few years back, and I'll show it to you real quick. What it has on it, it has power button right here. You have your voltage knob right here, your test button for your settings. In the front, you have DB15 connectors for your Neo Geo cables if you want to put that in there. This part right here, USB 1 and 2, you can play 2-player with this one. This right here, this is where your encoder, USB encoder is going to plug into, USB 1. On the side, we have your headphones if you want to use them, your sync button. If you hook this up and if you're using the same super gun I'm using, or if your super gun has a sync button, once you hook everything up, if you're not getting a picture or a garbled picture, push this sync button in and see if that'll help. Generally it will. And here you have your horizontal and vertical positions on your super gun to make adjustments to your picture. On the back, you have at the bottom, you have your AVI if you're using just AVI, if you're hooking to a TV or something like that. And up top, you have your component cable. So you have composite down here, component up here. Your S-video, if you have an S-video cable, you want to use that. Your MD2 RGBS out. That's basically that fancy Dreamcast cable. And this is on the back is where your Jamma plugs in. On the other end, it's going here because where your Jamma connector plugs in. When I say Jamma connector, it's going to be the other end of that cord right here. You have your voltage, your power in right here, and it starts back over. So this is a super gun that I got. I got it a few years ago. I think I've showed this thing to you a couple times now, but we'll go over it again if it's your first time watching a video with me. You have your audio in here, and you have to be careful. Okay, so if you hook up your Jamma board and you're not getting audio, you got to read where your signal's coming from. So in the front it has AVI1 out, AVI in, and AV3. So if you use AV3, if we look here, if you're using VGA, okay? So if it's VGA, that's the only time you're gonna plug it into this AVI3. If you're using SCART or component like we're gonna be using today, you wanna make sure it's in the right position, AV2. Also on the end, you gotta have all this is a 3.5 millimeter jack. Okay, so it's a double male cord. And on the end, I have a female connector, which you're gonna need to get your sound. It's gonna carry your sound. It's got a female connector and 2 female connectors for AV, okay, for audio. So you're gonna need this. All right, and you're gonna need these component cables right here, the standard set of component cables. All right, so let's go back to where we were at. So we got the Jamma connected to the Jamma board. Now here, because the ultimate goal is we want to run our signal through this. So we got the Jamma hooked up. This is going to power everything. So now we want to connect the super gun to the OSSC, or if you have a different type of upscaler, if you have a Tink, you can do the same thing. And how we're going to do that, now you can get a better picture depending on how I got older equipment, okay? But if you got newer stuff, you might have more options. But I'm going to show you what I got at a basic level, okay? So what we want to do is we want to plug this component cables into the back of the super gun. Make sure that you got the right ones, okay? So these are going to be, you got 2 reds right here. One's going to be, and you can tell by the way the wires are, where they're running. Usually the audio is off to one side, and your the ones that carry your signal, your RGB ones, are on this side. So we're going to plug this into the back. I'm just going to follow it, green to green. Make sure they're all the way in. Blue, red, and we have our audio, okay? Now for this, on the super gun, you want to plug it into the audio jacks at the bottom. So you want to plug white. You can see white to white, red, and red to red. So white, red, because we're outputting our audio from the super gun. Okay, so that's your audio. If you don't have these plugged in, and you just plug these in, you're gonna get a picture but no sound. So this is what's gonna look like at the end. All right, so we're done with that. We can set that off to the side. Now we're gonna plug this into our OSC. So we'll go to the back of our OSC. And we'll follow the color pattern. We'll do the same thing with the wire. Your audio is going to be off to the left and right. So let's flip this over. Okay, so we can see down here, these are your audio, these are your colors. We'll put them into the back of the OSSC. Green, blue, and red. All right, so that's what's going to look like with your OSSC. Now we got these 2 cables right here. All right, this is your audio. You're gonna need to plug them into this. Okay, now depending on what side you put in, depending on what speaker, what sound's gonna come out the speakers, what side's gonna come out. I got mine marked for this little thing right here. Usually I have one side, put a little indentation on one side so I can tell whenever I'm hooking it up where the white goes and where the red goes. You can do that on yours, or you can just memorize it or try to experiment with it. But at the end, you want to have this. Okay, so that's all our setups pretty much. All right, so let's go over everything. So we're starting with here with the Jamma board connected to the super gun. Super gun's going through here, and you can pause this later on if you get confused. Super gun's going through your component cables into your OSSC. Your OSSC is connected, and the last part we want to do is I have an HDMI cable right here coming out of my machine. This HDMI cable goes right here, all right, into the side of your OSSC. And what it's doing now is this is an out, HDMI out, so it's sending this up to the monitor, okay? So basically in this example, we are bypassing the Jamma system that's inside the arcade machine, and we are creating our own Jamma from the parts we have down here with the super gun. So the other end of this HDMI cable is basically plugged into your monitor inside of your arcade machine in the HDMI port. That's where the other side is. Now that should be all the connections we have to make. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fire up this, I'm going to put everything neatly inside the machines, clean up this mess a little bit, and then we're ready to turn everything on. I'll be back. All right, so let's do that. Okay guys, so I got everything inside. It's kind of messy, but I wouldn't leave it this way normally, but I got it just set up for you guys just for the demonstration. I got my board right here because it's so freaking big. I have the super gun and I have my OSSC down here, and everything's hooked up, ready to go. I just got to plug in now I'm going to show you this real quick. This is my encoder that's coming down from my arcade machine. So our encoder is attached to the arcade machine. This goes to my sticks. On the super gun, I'm going to put it right here in that USB port 1 that we described. Also a good idea is to take your cable, because this board does get hot and you don't want to melt the USB encoder cable. So see how I got the cable right there? I'll shine a light in there so you guys can see it, but so I don't want you guys to damage your cable. But right here, this is the USB encoder cable. Make sure that it's not touching your board. That way you don't fry anything or you don't melt your encoder cable, because these cables that they came out with, they're kind of thin. So just be careful, and this board does get hot, so you don't want that or short something out. So make sure that if you have it like mine, it's not touching your board. All right, so let's go ahead and fire this bad boy up and see what we got. Okay, so we turned on the machine, and if we look inside, we have our OSSC. We're gonna turn that on. Okay, we got that turned on, and we're gonna turn on, and the screen kind of came on with the OSSC, so we're getting the signal. And we're gonna turn on our super gun. And you can see it powers the board and everything. All right, and make sure you got the correct voltage for your board. I have a voltage switch here. Make sure you got the correct setting. So when I get a picture on an OSSC, so I have to use the remote. That's how I'm going to operate this thing. For me, it works on setting number 2. Okay, and now we got our screen. So we got our pit fighter, right? All right. So let's bring it up to pit fighter, and there's a few adjustments I want to go over with you guys real quick if you're doing this. Okay, so we're gonna check our sound real quick, and you can't hear it because right now it's in demo mode. So just to show you everything works, I'm gonna show you how everything works on this control panel. All right, so remember, if you watch my old video, for some reason my start button on this particular board is wired to my kick. I don't know why, but that's how it was when the guy sold it to me. So anyway, we don't have a coin mechanism hooked to this thing. So for this particular super gun, the coin mechanism is already wired up here to your select button. Okay, so we're getting credits, so you don't have to worry about a coin mechanism. This is the actual board, and it's usually the super gun has a special, turns down, and usually the super gun has some kind of default for coins. Okay, so that's our coin button, and we can see it right here, and we can hear it. So it's actually got a pretty good picture on it, guys. But the whole point of doing this was we want a better picture. We want Scanlines in there. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So there's 2 things I want to show you. One is how to put your Scanlines on. So if OSSC, you got a couple of buttons you got to press on here to get it to go. All right, so we're gonna turn these on in settings. You can have and you can see up there where it says Scanline type. You can do a couple if you want. You can do horizontal, vertical, or whatever. You can also turn on automatic Scanlines, where it does it automatically for you, and that looks okay. So you can basically play with the settings you want, and you can adjust the strength of your Scanlines, meaning how much you want, depending on how deep you want them to be. The bigger the Scanlines are, usually the darker your picture is going to be, so you don't want it too dark. I like to rest at about 31 on this particular machine. So let's look at the difference now. So you can see it right here, all right, and that's a beautiful looking picture. And I'm gonna show you off and on real quick. So I'm gonna show you real quick, guys, what the Scanlines look like off and on. This is when I'm off. That's auto, that's on, that's on, off, on, off. And you can kind of tell back here even, okay?
and you can adjust them any way you like. So at this point, we're able to play our PCB boards until Unicode comes out with some type of update for the board that's in there, or an update for this monitor. We are able to bypass that and actually get Scanlines with our Unicode Nova Blast Arcade. I mean, I generally like to play mini computers and Raspberry Pis and consoles in mine, so you can make adjustments. But if you're playing like a PCB board in this machine, which I think the PCB boards do very well, you can actually get it to where you can actually use your Scanlines. Okay, so we're gonna put the Scanlines on, cut them off and on, and you can turn these pretty dark if you want. Okay, so that's all Scanlines making it gray like that. So that's what we got. So we actually got a pretty good picture now. Now there's one more thing I want to show you guys I think is very important. Okay, so if you look right here, there's a delay in the character moving. See that delay? This guy quit punching me. I'm gonna show you how to fix that, okay? Because I had this problem and I was wondering what was wrong. If you can see where I'm moving it, you can hear it. So what I'm gonna show you guys how to fix that. So what you wanna do, depending on the converter you're using, you wanna make sure that your picture is at max resolution, the highest it can go, where it's actually in true HD. So if I go into the setting, video, sampling and all that stuff, I wanna go to output. Now my output right now is 240, 288p, okay? You don't want this, because if you look now, make sure you look at the bottom right here when I change this. Okay, see how it says 720, 60 hertz at the bottom? You don't want that, okay? Because right now, what's happening is if I go back to 2x, see how it says 480p, 60 hertz? You don't want that, because that's not a true HD signal. I mean, you can argue back and forth if it is or isn't, but what it does is, actually something with this monitor where it runs in that resolution, you get lag, okay? So maybe somebody in the comments can explain it a little better. So what I did to cut that lag, I went up as high as I can go. Remember my resolution, so right now I'm at 720. I can go up one more, and right now I am at 1280 at 960, and that's a pretty good compromise. Now if your encoder can go higher and match the true resolution of this screen, you'll get less lag, and I'm going to demo that for you right quick. If I try to go higher to 5x, it's unsupported. So 4x is the highest I can go on this encoder with this particular board. So now we're going to do that same test on the lag, and you'll see that the lag has been cut dramatically, and it's actually very playable. All right, same situation. See? So we cut out a lot of that lag that was in there. So even though it will accept that resolution, that's not the resolution that you're supposed to have. So to get maximum performance, you want to make sure you upscale. You want to make sure you run your upscales to the highest resolution that you can go with the picture still looking good. And I think the picture on this looks pretty good. If we take a closer look, you can see those scan lines in there, and the screen's not cut off or anything. There is a little fluttering at the top, okay, but I can live with that because I'll trade that off to get the scan lines any day. And also one thing to note, that the upscaler I'm using is a very old upscaler. It does the job, but they got so many newer upscalers, you might get better results. More than likely, if you're using a Tink 5 or a Tink Pro, you're going to get excellent results. But I'm just doing this to show you guys that it is possible to do it even with an old OSSC and an old Supergun. So
basically, guys, today we were able to achieve getting scan lines on our PCB Jamma board. So what this means essentially is if you are an enthusiast, arcade enthusiast, and you primarily play Jamma boards on your arcade machines, especially in this case the Nova Blast Candy Cab, you are able, if you have a Supergun and an upscaler, you can improve your picture. So a lot of people are asking for that, and I feel like eventually Unicode might come out with something for their board and update to let us enable our own scan lines, or do something with the monitor, have upgrade firmware with that. But until that, we do have a way to, if you have those items, to put scan lines and get that and bring yourself one step closer to a better arcade experience. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. This one's kind of long. Please rate, comment, subscribe. That way you don't miss any more arcade tutorials or any video gaming information on this channel. With that, guys, as always, take care of yourself, protect your peace. God bless you, and we'll catch you on the next one.